Coming up on episode 188 of Creative Writing, I'm talking about how to keep consistent book sales.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello and welcome to Creative Writing. This is the podcast for you, an author who wants to sell more books without being smarmy. And I'm your host, Kirsten Oliphant. I am so glad you're here, whether it's your first or 188th time listening to the podcast. Tonight, I feel a little bit off in terms of, as I'm recording this, I had a little accident today and fell. My feet just went out from under me on the floor. I don't even know what I slipped in, and I landed on my face, so I got a bit of a fat lip. I'm hoping for a black eye. I've always wanted a really good black eye, and even in roller derby, I only got like semi-good black eyes, so we'll see. Maybe I'll post a picture in the Facebook group. I have rug burn as well on my face. It's really very attractive, but if I have a black eye or noticeable enough something, I'll put a picture in the group. You can also go there for great community and other really helpful things, unlike pictures of my bruised face, but that's at creativewriting.com/community. And if you want the show notes for my episodes, they always correspond to the number. So you can go to my site, creativewriting.com/whatever. This week it's 188, so creativewriting.com/188. And last episode, 187, I talked about getting a Bookbub featured deal, which was kind of a dream of mine and really did have a big impact. This was, I think, I can check and see, I think this is my best month of the year. This was my best month of the year. Making over $6,000, which is awesome. So, I'm really happy with that. That's fantastic. So, the Bookbub absolutely helped with that. And, I definitely came out in the black as well. But I was talking in that episode about how it's not really a sustainable thing. You don't know if you can get a Bookbub or not. You can't, they're really hard to get. This is the first one. I've been trying for a couple of years now. So you can't count on that. It's not really sustainable. So what do we do if you want to sustain book sales over time? And so I'm going to talk all about that in this episode. And there's some other great episodes that will relate to that. So if you head over to those show notes at creativewriting.com/188, you'll find other links and helpful resources. Usually I say this at the end of the show, but I want to say it at the beginning because I get people asking and I think they don't hear the end of this. But the music on this show is wonderful and it's from indie artist Jasmine Commerce. And I would love for you to support her. You can find her at jasminecommercemusic.com, and she's phenomenal, as you can hear. But if you keep getting this song stuck in your head, go find her and support some indie music. All right, let's talk about consistent book sales. Okay, you've written a book. Wonderful. That's fantastic. You should absolutely congratulate yourself. I remember the first time I finished a book, I think it took a year to write. And then it wasn't done because it needed a lot of work and editing. It took forever. I think that it really start to like polished finish, it was like 2 years. So, I mean, it's a long time. However long it took you, the time isn't what's important. The important thing is you birthed the book, way to go. And maybe you've launched a book. Another congratulations is in order because that's another big undertaking with a lot of moving parts. So celebrate those things. But the problem is you can do both of those things and not sell books. Or you can sell books when you launch maybe, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, it's 2 weeks away from launch and now my book isn't selling at all. This is the thing. We have a very crowded marketplace. We do have a lot of avid readers. I've seen, since the whole COVID thing, my income has gone up. I see a lot of people reading. I am for sure reading for escape. So book sales are going well for me. But if you don't do anything to promote those sales, you're not going to have consistent sales. And so trying to come up with a consistent strategy is going to have kind of two parts. And let me break it down a couple ways. There's organic things, which are free, and then paid things like advertising. And then there's also what I'm going to call booms, which are sort of like one-time, really big impact things that will drop off as soon as they happen. And so they'll have a big impact for a short period of time. And then there are what I'll call the blooms, where it's more of a slow growth over time, kind of a promotional activity. And I, as you'll hear, like to combine the booms and the blooms to have kind of a steady growth with some spikes for the big booms and then consistent growth and consistent sales with the blooms that go over time. So I've tried a lot of things. And when I started out, I will say it's hardest when you only have one book because you're relying on that book for all of your income and it's going to look really different. It's going to be a little harder. So when I was starting out, this was an uphill process. And I think I started seeing profits with my second or third book, like full on profits. But when my profits, I was actually putting them all right back into the book. And I will address those of you guys who are like, I have no budget. I'll talk about that at the end as well. So I've tried a lot of different things to keep my book selling. And what I'll say is you have to pay attention. I do try to track this, and I've seen things change even in the 2.5 years I've been promoting books in terms of what works and what doesn't. And I've heard this from other authors. So you do need to kind of keep your ear to the ground, stay in some author groups, try things, track them. It can vary by genre, but there are some booms that are very successful and then some blooms that are going to be over time that you can continue to do. So let's talk about what those booms are, the limited time promotions. And these are time sensitive things. You may have less control over them and their impact, and they're not going to last as long. It's like a big explosion. It has a massive impact or has an impact and may have a spike in your sales and then it's over. So booms might include like the Bookbub featured deal I talked about. A book launch can be a boom because you're talking about it. You're excited about it. Everybody's on board with you and promoting. And then a month later, they're tired of it, right? So launches can be a boom. Any of the email promotional sites I've talked about before, e-reader news today, Robin Reads, those kinds of sites, those are a boom. It sends an email out one time and on that day, you'll see a spike. Most of these are paid. But a boom also might include something like if you're featured in a larger author's newsletter, like maybe you have someone big promote you, or doing a Facebook party. Facebook parties, I think, tend to not be as effective in a lot of genres, but I have seen them work well. I've actually seen them work a little bit better for my young adult than I have my newsletter for my young adult, actually. So you just don't know. It's different by genre. And my genre for young adult is like urban fantasy, paranormal romance versus my clean romance for adult. Very different genres. Maybe you're a podcast guest. If you're someone who is doing nonfiction, and sometimes I feel like the free things for nonfiction, there's a lot more free opportunities to promote your book. But being a podcast guest, because it's harder to find a podcast that's like for readers of a certain genre, but you can definitely find them for nonfiction types of things. So any kind of promotion that has a shelf life that might have a big impact that trails off is a boom. And they're really powerful. Like the Bookbub feature deal is really powerful, but I mean, I saw the sales, the day I had it, I think I sold 1,200 books. The next day I sold 100. So 100 is nothing to sneeze at. That's way more than I sell in a normal day, but compared to 1,200, that's a really steep cliff. And then it kind of went back up. So my Bookbub deal was on a Saturday, and I think that's not the best day to have them based on my experience. And I don't have anything to compare it to, but I think it would work better during the week. Anyway, you don't always have a choice. I didn't have a choice. That's when they gave it to me. So the next day, Sunday, I don't typically see a ton of sales on Sundays. Some people do. I don't. So anyway, that's what it is. It was a boom and then it was gone. And I did some things, as I'll talk about, to kind of keep it going and keep that tail going. But a boom is quick there and gone. Bloom strategies are more long-term and they might be slower. They might not move the needle as much or in a big way. You won't see a big spike necessarily as you do with a boom, but they'll keep the needle moving over time. And these are really important. And these are great for those of you who are on a budget. So blooms might include, I would put Amazon ads and Facebook ads in here. Those are paid, obviously. Your welcome series, which is a free bloom, because if you have people consistently signing up for your email, if you're putting them through a welcome series and you're setting that up so it tells people about your popular series or your first in series or your only book that you have, then you're going to see some consistent sales as people go through that. You might be blogging and have those posts optimized for SEO, search engine optimization. So Google might be sending traffic to your site, or you might be using Pinterest, and that works like search engine optimization SEO as well. So like people are on Pinterest searching for a type of book, sends them to your blog post. Also your back matter and books, making sure that you're trying to send people on a journey through your books. Those are kind of blooms. Those are long-term things that you can do to sell over time. And it's a more slow effect. They might have a trickle of sales. So usually I've started building up. I started with no Facebook ads. Then I was running like one or two for $5 a day. And now I think I'm spending in total in ads about $50 a day, under 50, somewhere in there total over a series of books. And that's Amazon ads and Facebook ads total. And I'm making a total of between 150 and 200 per day. So I'm definitely profitable. I'd like to see even more profit from that, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm at right now because that's keeping my books kind of visible and higher in the ranks. So my blooms are pretty cheap Facebook ads. And they've gone from $5 to, I've been pushing the limits to see, okay, if I bump it to 7, if I bump it to 11, if I bump it to 13, 15, what if I bump it to 20? Is the profit margin still the same? And you kind of find that sweet spot for like, okay, when I get to 20, I think when I got to 20 or 21, I found that the cost per click went up a little bit and my sales went a little bit down, which meant that they were more expensive and I was making less money. So I took them back down to like 15 or 17 and now it's doing better. So you just don't know. You have to kind of play with those things. But those are the overtime strategies. And Amazon ads, I think, even work more slowly. Like I see trickles of sales. So if I turn off my Facebook ads and just run Amazon ads, even if I see Amazon ads being effective, for me personally, and I'm not the expert on Amazon ads, y'all, if I do that, all my rankings fall. I might sell some books still, but the trickle becomes much more of a drip. Okay. Not necessarily a bad thing. So if you're trying to dip your toe into advertising, for me, Amazon, I can't get them to spend as much of my money as I would like. So I'm spending, I don't know how much a day, sometimes like $7 a day total on Amazon ads, and I don't see a whole lot. I might see sales. I'm starting to be more profitable there, but I can't seem to make a bunch of headway there. So anyway, you're going to lose less money. Where Facebook, if you're like spend 7 a day, they spend 7 a day. Amazon may not. So those are my blooms, and they keep sales moving. Now, I also send out weekly emails. I also have newsletter swaps set up. I have a welcome series going in, and I'm always trying to grow my list. So that's kind of what I have going on. And so I have these booms every so often, and then I have the blooms that are going on all the time in the background. And I do check them. Sometimes I get really too stressed out and check them too often. Like Facebook, I might say, oh, this ad isn't profitable today and turn it off. And then my rank plummets. Whereas if I'd let it ride for a week and kind of checked over that week how it worked, it might be a better option. So organic blooms, non-paid, are harder to come by, right? I've mentioned my focus on Amazon and Facebook ads, right? But again, if you have a sign up to your email in the back of your book, when you sell a book and someone signs up, and maybe that's a free book, maybe it's a bonus epilogue or bonus chapter, those are really successful. And then you're setting up that welcome series in there and promoting, okay, you want to get that next book in the series, or even in the free, like, if you have a book funnel free book, send them to a book that has a link in the back to the next in the series or the next book you want to promote. Take them on that journey through. So you have all kinds of options for those. Your Facebook, I know a lot of people who post in Facebook groups for readers, and there's hundreds or thousands of them, y'all. And they post every single day, like 5 different links for the same book in 5 different Facebook groups. They just have like spreadsheet, or they just know which ones, and they do that. Now, I think most of those groups are not effective, but again, it doesn't take much time. So what are you losing by doing that? You might get a handful of sales, a trickle of sales. So what I find most effective is to combine the booms and the blooms. So when I'm looking at like a calendar for the year, I try to plan out one boom per month if possible. And it's not always possible. So again, that boom, some months it's a book launch, and that's where all the money is going. That's where the big focus is going. I'll have a spike of sales on that day or during that week. I'll also set up some paid boom things. I'll set up some of those emails. If I've got the book on sale, that is with eReader News Today or Robin Reads or any of those other ones. There are all kinds of lists all over the place for book promotional sites, but I'll book some of those. I'll have newsletter swaps, which I usually spread out over 2 weeks to a month. And I've tested different things, like trying to get them all in one day. And sometimes what I find happens is that you do that and then your sales trickle off. Whereas those email promotional sites, that works really well to have that boom. But then the newsletter swaps, I like to spread out over time to keep those sales trickling in, to kind of keep my book more sticky so it doesn't drop out of the rankings. So I try to plan one of those booms per month. So a book launch, or maybe I'm putting together a box set because I've completed a series, or I don't have a book coming out. So I'm going to do a free promotion on one book, and then I usually will pay for those. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, like my book is free, I'm going to pay to advertise it. But what happens is, especially if your book is in Kindle Unlimited or in a series, you will see in the days that follow, you will see page reads increase, and you will see those other books in the series increase. So every month that I've done a free promotion, in a lot of ways, they're less effective. I've seen less effectiveness over time. Like 2 years ago when I did one, I think I would see more sales, but I still see sales. I will still see that sometimes as the biggest sale day of the month is the day after a free promo. I usually do just one day, maybe two. If I can't book all the promos I want to do on the same day, I'll do 2 days. Right after that is when I see the biggest spike in sales. Sometimes even more than my book launch. And so I'll try to, like, some months I'll have two things. It just depends on what's happening. But yeah, I try to plan one of those booms. And then I try to combine that with a bloom. So for example, with the Bookbub, when I had the Bookbub featured deal, the day I had it, like I said, I stacked a couple promos. I got them the day before, not the day of. So my ranking jumped. It was probably around 30 to 40K in the store. So it wasn't bad because I had those blooms running, right? I had trickles of sales coming in. I did a promo or booked 2 promos the day before the Bookbub, and my ranking dropped into like the thousands. And I was pretty excited to be in the thousands, maybe somewhere between 1 and 2,000 in the whole Amazon store. With the Bookbub, I sold 1,200 books. And that dropped me down to number 121 in the whole Amazon store. It's my lowest ranking ever. Okay, that took 1,200 book sales. The next day, I sold only, and I'm laughing at only, it's not only, y'all, but comparatively, 102 copies. But that kept my book in the 200 to 500 range. Even though it took 1,200 to get from 1,000 to 121, I stayed there for quite a long time and stayed in the top 1,000 for a couple days, even though my sales really quickly dropped off. So once you get down in the rankings, it's a little bit easier to hold on to those. And so I kind of upped some of my Facebook ads and did some more posting in Facebook groups. This is a big sale, things like that, to kind of keep the tail of that boom going a little bit longer. And I started to see other book sales pick up in my series and things like that. There's definitely a big drop off, but running those ads, I was able to keep the book kind of higher. And I would have loved to stay in the 1,000 range, but I just didn't, because here's the thing. Ranking is cool. Okay. Ranking can mean your book is more visible in the store, but I'm not always convinced that readers search by bestseller lists or they search by categories. I'm not really sure. I would guess they are searching more in search engines. If your book is selling well, Amazon will often serve it up to people when they search for it. So there is a benefit to that ranking and to continuing, having your book continue to sell. But at a certain point, ranking might not be profitable. And so for me right now, my book is around 30K in the store. So obviously it's fallen, but it's profitable. So do I need it to be in 1,000? Is it going to continue? And maybe it would be. Maybe it would be much more profitable if it was much more visible at that 1,000. Or maybe I would just be spending too much money to hold on to a ranking. So for me, it's not worth it to pay for my book to be seen if my book isn't profitable. So you really just have to watch that. Okay. And I'm focused on the Amazon store. The same is true kind of for other stores if you're going wide as well. The ranking isn't as important to me as the bottom line. So I'll try to plan out one boom a month and combine that with slow and steady bloom strategies that are keeping my books in front of people. And, this all really depends. If you're planning okay, how can I plan this out? It really depends on how many books you have, whether they're in series or not, your launch strategy, how many books you're launching a year. I do have friends who are doing very well publishing once or twice a year. What that means is that each book launch is a lot bigger deal. So my book launches, and I've talked about these in other episodes. You can head to creativewriting.com and kind of search around. There's a lot of episodes on launching, but I don't make a giant deal of each launch. I talk about it, but because I'm often having a book launch a month, if I went crazy, I would exhaust people. But if I had one book coming out a year, I would be doing all kinds of crazy buildup. And you can do that a lot more if you're having one book a year and make that a much more massive event. Okay. So it really looks different. All of these things will look different depending on what your strategy is and what you have to work with, what your backlist. So not your new books, what that looks like for you. So if you have several series, you could set up some bloom things, some cheap Facebook ads to just the first book in the series. Or I've actually had good luck with sending them to a series page, and I've found a lot more sales that way. But maybe this would look like something for you. January, you have one boom, and that's a book launch. And then you are paying for some email promos for that. You have some cheaper Facebook ads running in the background on other books and other series. You have newsletter swaps for the new release. February, you're not launching a book, but you have a free day on one of your older books. So that's a boom. You got some paid email promos, Facebook ads, and Amazon ads. And I will say, if you're doing a free promo, I should have a whole episode on those. If you're doing a free promo and you don't book ads for it, You might think, oh, well, why would I spend money on a free book? But I will tell you, you will not see the results if you're not promoting that free book. It'll just languish in the store because there are so many free books. You have to kind of push that book, and then you'll actually see the results happen and make your money back. That's what I found time over time. Okay, so March, maybe you're putting together a box set. Okay, so it's been 2 months since the last book launched. That was the end of the series. I don't always wait that long before I put a book launch out. I wait till I need a boom. So like, I'm not launching a new book, I'll launch a box set. And so you might have some paid promos, you might have some newsletter swaps and things like that, but you're still running in the background some Facebook and Amazon ads. Maybe you're posting a lot in Facebook groups because it's a good price on that box set. So those are some free kind of blooms to go with that big launch of the box set. Then in April, you're going to have a 99-cent sale. Maybe you're having a 99-cent sale on the first 3 in a 6-book series. And so you have some paid ads, you're doing newsletter swaps, you've got those Facebook ads running in the background, things like that. May, you have another book launch. So far we've only launched 2 books. Only, that might seem like a lot for you. Between January and May, you've launched 2 books and a box set. So really with the box set, the only work is the formatting and getting the cover and all that. So in May, you've got another book launch. You've got a boom. You've got of the launch itself. You've got the paid email promos. If the book is on sale, you got Facebook and Amazon ads running in the background. Maybe a new Facebook ad that's a little bit higher priced for that launch. Maybe you're a podcast guest on a relevant podcast. There's a free part to the boom. And then you might have those newsletter swaps going out over the month. And so that's kind of how I look at each month is I'll set a big calendar up and I'll say, okay, this is what I'm launching every month. This is what I'm doing. So I already know for August, for my young adult name, as well as my clean romance day name, I'm doing a free day for one of each of those books. And it's actually right around each other. And I'm doing a promotion organized by Bridget Baker. Hey, Bridget, who's doing, got a couple authors together in each of those genres because she also writes in the young adult kind of urban fantasy world and then in clean romance. So we have a whole bunch of authors teaming up together to do a free day and all email for each other. And so we're all emailing the little groups of us, hey, here are 10 free books or 12 or however many are in there. So that's going to be my boom. And I'm really not going to do, I think for one of them, I might be stacking some ads and I have a book launch this month. So I actually have a lot planned for this month, but the book launch is for one of my young adult books and it's the second in a series. The first didn't sell crazy well. So my super fans are really excited about it, but I don't really anticipate that it's going to be huge. And maybe it will because the book I'm doing for free is the first in the series. And it's a good book. I have new covers from when I launched them. So we'll see. But every month, basically, I'm looking out there at what's my big boom. And maybe every month you can't have one. And then what am I doing small to just kind of keep sales trickling in over time? If you don't do anything, because I know some of you out there are like, well, I just want to put my book out there and I want it to sell, which is all of our dreams, right? We would all dream of putting our book out there and just having it sell. And there are people, I do have friends, they do this. They put out a book and it sells and they're like, you should turn off all your ads. This works for me. And I'm like, oh, I tried that. It did not work for me. I do think it's kind of a unicorn thing. If you can put a book out there and it just sells, it usually means you've built up enough of an audience that they're all following you on Amazon, watching for your books. It usually means that there's like a higher quality of writing, but some people really, I've seen some books do amazing and organically sell and they're not great. So who knows? Sometimes it's a mystery. So that's when I call them a unicorn. Like I can't replicate what you're doing because it makes no sense to me. But for the most part, if you don't do something, your books will not sell. Even quickly, books will drop in the rankings because there are so many books out there and so many choices. You need to do something if you want your book to sell. So what if you have no budget? Okay. And I hear this a lot. I know that's probably some of you guys out there. And trust me, I hear you. It may sound like I don't. When I started, I used money for my other business. So I had money coming in from affiliate sales, things from related to this podcast, courses I was selling. I took all that money and I used it to buy the best, cheapest covers I could. I used it for editing, and then I used it for those paid promos. So probably each book was somewhere under $500 in promotional and all the costs. And that allowed me to do those paid promos. I didn't really start to see the money coming back as much with the first book. Also, my first book just wasn't that good, y'all. I thought it was. I was so proud of it. And, I still love it. I have a sweet place for it in my heart. But it's not my best work. It just isn't. Even though I took longer to write it than some of my others. time isn't always the thing, right? So, like I said before, I think with my second and third book, that's when I started to see the money come in. And I think it was the third book I wrote that was in a hot genre in the billionaire books where I saw a big jump in profit, and that never came back down. Yes, it's fluctuated, but I mean, it never came back down to where it was. So like I jumped up to a new level of income, and that didn't go away. And I started to really find my fans and build that. So when you're starting out, if you can find money from somewhere else, maybe you're making money as a virtual assistant, maybe you're making money selling coffee, maybe you're babysitting, maybe whatever it is, if you can find someone to get someone to invest in you, like ask your parents, ask your spouse, ask some friends, like, hey, I am really trying to make this into a business. Who can help me start this out? Now, I'm not usually one to ask other people for money, but my point is this. Find what you can do. And I know Jamie Albright, who's one of my favorite rom-com authors, I've talked with her about this. She sold plasma to pay for her book cover. Okay? Think about that. There are things that you can do, selling plasma, whatever. And I know this is a tight time, so I'm not trying to minimize the struggle. I know it's real. I didn't have a huge budget. I still started out, and then everything I made went back in. And so I kept growing. And so my costs have gone up, right? I was not running Facebook ads then. The reason that I did those email sites, the paid email sites like eReader News Today, is because email really sells, and those sites have built up an email readership. I didn't have to learn to run ads first. As long as my covers were to market, which they really need to be, and my blurb was pretty solid, if I was picking those right categories, my books would sell and they would become more visible. More people heard about them. My email list grew, and it worked the way it should. Now that I've learned Facebook ads, I'm able to, keep those cheaper ads going all the time. But I did bootstrap. I absolutely started with no money. And again, I know that it adds up, but, spending $5 a day on Facebook ads, could you cut something out? Could you stop going to Starbucks, right? Buy more coffee at home. Because I know my favorite drink at Starbucks is $5.14. What if you put that towards Amazon? And I don't buy them every day. But anyway, the point being, find what you can. Try to invest in yourself, but I don't invest. Okay. Let me just hear me on this. I don't want you losing money, right? I'm all about ROI, return on investment for time and money. If your book cover is not to market, if people cannot tell what genre your book cover is, and I would say that matters more than your blurb, but if your blurb is not engaging, if it doesn't have a hook in the beginning, if it's unclear what your book is about, you're going to have trouble. Don't invest. Don't invest in ads. Don't invest in those email sites because your book is not going to sell well. The end. And some genres are harder than others. Literary, hard. General contemporary young adult, hard. Picking into those genres and the niches, a lot easier. So over time, I continued to invest, I reinvested, and then I grew my budget to now where I'm actually profitable. So, and also I'm a lot better. I'm better at writing. I'm better at knowing covers. I'm better at marketing because I continued to also invest in myself and learning. So, I do have on the Facebook, or not the Facebook, but on the blog post that goes with these, the show notes at creativewriting.com/188. I do have a thing at the bottom. If you want to take my Facebook ads workshop, it's $75, which is one of the cheapest Facebook ads, anything you'll find, because it's not covering everything. It's covering how to set up and run Facebook ads starting at $5 a day. Or $2 or $3. You can also check out all the workshops that I have at creativewriting.com/workshop. But this is really what I've learned and distilled down so that those of you guys who are trying to make a profit, you don't want to spend a ton of money, you don't want to lose a ton of money. I try to cut out some of those mistakes and show you what to do. So if you're ready to move into that bloom, slow and steady growth over time, you might want to check that out. Overall, combine the booms with the blooms so that you can steadily sell over time. If you don't do anything, you aren't going to sell. But as you're starting out, do as much organic stuff as you can, as much author cross-promotional stuff, newsletter swaps, posting in Facebook groups, all those things, and then invest in yourself where you can and invest in the sure things. But make sure before you invest, your covers are on point for your genre and your blurb is hooky and good and going to get people reading. And if you're not sure about that, you could get, I think it's called Mastering Amazon Descriptions by Brian D. Meeks. And it's all about descriptions. That's the best book out there, I think, on those. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Books don't sell themselves, unfortunately, unless you're a unicorn. And if you are, Way to go, unicorn. I was going to say pat yourself on the head, but she'd stab yourself with your horn. So don't do that. Just be glad you're a unicorn. But no, at some point that may not work anymore. So you need to learn how to do this. So continue to invest in yourself, continue to believe in yourself, ask for help and feedback. A great place to do that is in our little community, which is at creativewriting.com/community. So I hope that helps you guys think about your overall long-term strategy of selling books consistently over time. Thank you so much for listening. It's time for you to go out and create content that you love to serve your people well.